Good evening and welcome to Revolution Evolution. I am live from a brand new studio setup, courtesy of Restream. I have changed it up a bit. Tonight I am being joined with the host of Around the World with Friends. And go over there, check out her channel, give her a subscribe. Tonight, we're going to be talking about major happenings at Temple Mount and on the West Bank. And what's going on there is just unbearable. It's a crisis that is just a major injustice, and it's sponsored by the Israeli government. It's funded by the U.S. government, the U.K. government, many European governments, many Western governments around the world who think it's okay to partake in a bloody genocide against a stateless people who are defenseless. They have no military. They have no way to defend themselves. This is something that I have been passionate about for a year now, or well over a year, maybe even longer than that. Like, I didn't really speak out on it until like last year sometime when I really started to see how bad it really is. And I'm going to hand it over to Dee to do her little discussion over it as well.
Greg and I joined together on my show Around the World. At that time, it was Brandy and Dee. Now it's Dee and Fran. And we discussed Gaza, the West Bank, Palestine, what goes on at Al-Aqsa. We spent a lot of time discussing the problem and the terrorism of the Israeli government. And they always try to switch it around to say the people that are protecting themselves and are resisting, they try to put them as terrorist, when it's really the Israeli government and the settlers that are the terrorists. So Greg and I spent a lot of time talking about this. And I'm happy to be here with Greg.
There's been many shows that we have done over the last year or more where we had to end the show because of how emotional it could get, that it got. Like it got to be to the point to where it was like too sad for us to cover. Like the what was the really big tipping point that really drove my anger
was Mr. Suleiman.
Was Mr. Suleiman getting drugged behind the tow truck in the West Bank. I think that was like near Jenin or somewhere like that.
He was an old man.
He was an elderly man, really. He seemed to be a really kind man. I started digging up more on him, his background. And he was a really kind guy. Just did not deserve the maltreatment that he got. And that's going to bring it to the first order for tonight. And we're going to be discussing like what's going on in Temple Mount. And that brings me to this first article from the Jerusalem Post. And it's titled Temple Mount Group's Planned March of the Maccabees through Jerusalem's Old City. Temple Mount activists plan to conduct a march through the Old City of Jerusalem on Thursday, with organizers saying that the march aims to call for the removal of the Waqf from the Temple Mount. According to the poster advertising the march will also include a memorial for those murdered in the terrorist attacks and a call to have Jewish control over Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. The march will begin at Tzal Square and will continue through the Damascus Gate toward the Western Wall, as you can see right here. The organizers of the event include the Horzim Lahar Torat Liyama and the Bayadino movements, amongst other organizations. The Hamas terrorist organization expressed outrage at the march, calling it a dangerous attempt to impose Zionist control over the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and saying our people will not allow it no matter the cost. We call on the Arabic and Islamic nations and the brothers in the Kingdom of Jordan, and based on the Hashemite custodianship of the Islamic holy sites in Jerusalem, to take immediate and urgent action and to assume their historical responsibilities toward what is happening in the blessed Al-Aqsa Mosque, said Hamas on Tuesday. And there's also in this article stating where there's Iranian influence operation promoting Hanukkah march. Israeli journalist Bar Shem reported on Tuesday that an Iranian influence operation pretending to be Israeli right-wing social media account called Hagrov had promoted the march as well. The operation's Instagram account is located listed as Iran, which we already knew that they were going to try to blame this on Iran in the first place. We knew that was coming. That's nothing new. In response to the criticism of the march, right-wing activist Baruch Marzel stressed to Army Radio that Gaza is a result. The main incitement takes place at the Temple Mount, the most sacred place for Jews, which is not sacred for all Muslims. The march is meant to point to the root of the problem, which that is the heart of the capital of Israel. They are telling Arabs to continue to support Hamas, to praise Hamas leader Sinwar. We want the Jewish sovereignty to be there to be much stronger. Marzel rejected claims that the march would cause tensions to flare, saying before Simchat Torah, it was absolutely quiet. There were no marches, nothing, and the Arabs entered and massacred the residents of Be'eri, who loved them. Therefore, the time has come to stop giving Arabs an excuse. They don't need an excuse to massacre. They want to massacre us every day. Marzel insisted that the march would improve the security of Israel, not harm it. Yair Yitzhaki, the former commander of the Jerusalem District of Israel Police, told Army Radio that he believes that the march aims to incite violence, saying, why does it need to go through the Damascus Gate? Why not the Jaffa Gate? They're trying to cause anger, to heat things up any way possible. I cannot understand how a country that wants life and peace behaves like this. It makes moves that are like an autoimmune disease that harms itself. This is just really crazy, if you ask me.
An intentional act.
Yeah, it's an egregiously intentional act to stoke violence when there really shouldn't be. Like, there really shouldn't be any of this allowed.
Right, they want to ethnically cleanse the area. They want their amusement parks, their settlement, with no history that Palestine was ever there.
This was all part of the plan to begin with. Was to stoke tensions, create violence, and all that.
And we know Jordan is watching. Jordan has its red line.
Yeah, Jordan has stated time and time again that there is a red line in the sand. And I think this has done well past the red line there. So we know where this is going to go and all that.
Oh, we definitely do. Like Greg, you've spoken about the Greater Israel Plan, which they also call the Promised Land. They want to, totally exterminate Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, and just other areas. And we're watching it happen. Yeah, going through Iraq. And
yeah,
then
we have seen that, we have heard the same exact tune for far too long now. Like we have listened to this same exact tune for far too long, and we know what it's gonna do.
But Israel, the Zionists, they always try to play the victim. They do the provocation, and then they play the victim.
Yeah, they want to sit there, play the card, and act like a total narcissist, to say the least.
And we've been trying to let people know about this. We've been working on this.
Yeah, we have literally shown the warnings all over the place. Like I have even called a lot of this stuff and said that this is what's going to happen. And we've even had people, even in our own shows over on your channel, try to say that this is not going to happen, and we end up being right in the end.
Yes, we did.
Like, we have called this out and all that. We have predicted all of this for ages now. Like even Cornel West himself, last year prior to his he's even still calling this out. So is Jill Stein. And people want to sit there and think we're crazy, but we're not crazy at all.
No.
Never have been crazy. And they want to sit there and deny all of this stuff and say that none of it is happening. They want to sit there and believe what the U.S. government, and other countries want to believe their government narratives. They want to believe what their mainstream media is saying. And that's one thing why I want to do Friday evening, do a Dump the Corruption episode on this, to highlight how much money the pro-Israeli groups are putting out there. in terms of campaign. And I'm looking right now, I'm gonna look through the House reps that are currently running, go through all of their stuff, and since this 2024, I'm gonna have to go back to 2018 to see how much money they took to wake people up that, hey, this is nothing more than violence that is being funded by our own government. Hi, Brandy.
Yeah, it's good to see Brandy.
But this has been going on for decades. Like, this is 75 years this has been happening. And enough is enough. Like, we have all had it. Like, we're at our wits' end with this.
Yes, we are.
Like look at how much more is it going to take to wake people up to this reality and get people to finally come to terms that this is wrong.
You know, the sad thing is, all the shows we had and we talked about and we shared to get attention to this matter, it took October 7th.
Yeah, like October 7th was really the tipping point on the iceberg of all this.
And Israel continues to provoke. About the issue with the Temple Mount. What do? They don't listen. October 7th happens. Now, they continued on the violence in the West Bank, Temple Mount, Al-Aqsa Mosque, everything that they were told was the problem for the attacks and why the attacks were happening, they ignored, and they're continuing doing. So they're showing that they really don't care. What they want is to ethnically cleanse and genocide the area. They want all of Palestine. That's what their end game is.
My biggest fear is what's really going to happen if this spills out into other countries like Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. Like, what's going to be their reactions? They're going to react even worse than what the Palestinians are acting right now. And they've been showing a lot of restraint. And I think with the predicament that's going on at Temple Mount could spark a powder keg from, if they are successful at Temple Mount with the Al-Aqsa Mosque, it's going to spark a powder keg, because that's going to, number one, be a violation of the agreement. I don't know what year exactly the agreement was done between the Jordanian government and the Israeli government surrounding the Al-Aqsa Mosque. But I think that's going to be another show there that we do need to cover. And if they are successful on the West Bank there, that's going to spark a major response from the Jordanian government. Like, we already know that they're on knife's edge right now. And I think what we need to be doing is we need to be covering more shows on what the Jordanian response is going to be, the Iranian response, and the Lebanese government's response. The thing is that I am more concerned about is what Hezbollah is going to do from the north.
show themselves very strong. Israel knows how strong they are, and we don't have a chance this year.
Exactly. And I have another article right here that I want to look over. And this is from a new publication I don't think we've ever covered in our show's history. And this here is from the New Arab.
We'll use the New Arab. Very rarely.
This is what the Israeli police are going to allow dangerous extremist Jewish march in occupied East Jerusalem. Far-right Jewish groups to march through the old city in occupied East Jerusalem on Thursday. And this is going to be up to 200 participants. And you could see them right there at the temple. I think that's the Temple Mount. Yes, that is. I think that's Damascus Gate, if I'm not mistaken. Jewish Israeli far right. I would just go ahead and not call them Jewish. I would label them as Zionist far right groups are planning a provocative march in Jerusalem's old city on Thursday evening on the 7th of December, coinciding on the first day of the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah. The Israeli police permitted the rally, but said it restricted the number of participants to 200. The rally's exact route is unclear, but the police reportedly said they would not allow the participants to come near the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which we already know that they are probably going to go there.
Yes.
Even one of the organizers of the rally, Dinu movement, has a stated mission for the realization and application of full Israeli sovereignty on the Temple Mount. The Jews refer to the site as Temple Mount. The rallies demand the restoration of complete Jewish control of the Temple Mount and Jerusalem and the removal of the Islamic Waqf Authority, the party that runs the affairs of the Muslim holy site. This is actually making me want to look back at the history of the Temple Mount now. Jordan is the custodian of the Muslim and Christian holy sites in occupied East Jerusalem, which we already knew that. Last May, during a march of the Flags Parade, thousands of Jewish extremists, or Zionist extremists, which I don't even think that the regular, everyday Jewish men and women and children even claim the Zionists as part of Judaism. They have stormed the old city of Jerusalem under Israeli police protection, attacking Palestinians and journalists. Muslim worship at the holy site has been severely restricted in the past 2 months following the October 7th attacks. The Muslim Friday prayers, which traditionally attract tens of thousands of Palestinians to the Al-Aqsa, have dwindled to fewer than 5,000 worshippers as a result of restrictive measures by the Israeli police. So we already see here that they are already in violation of the agreement because of the restrictive practices that are taking place here. Tensions typically rise in occupied East Jerusalem during the Jewish holidays amid calls from fundamentalist Israeli settlers and politicians to allow Jewish prayer at the holy site. Hamas launched its offensive against bordering Israeli settlements on the 7th of October, partly in response to the Israeli violations in the Al-Aqsa. But yeah, like this is the restrictions of the Muslim worshippers there are already a direct violation with the Jordanian deal there.
And they do what the Lord tells them. They've been warned, and they just ignore what everybody tells them. They don't care whether the UN tells them, or Jordan, what anybody tells them. They ignore. They do what they want. And no one holds them accountable either.
And the reason why there is, and this goes back, the reason why there is no accountability from the global community, except for Russia, China, the BRICS nations, they are willing to hold them accountable. We already know that Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa being the main one mediator in BRICS, that knows what apartheid is. They here recently, they ordered all diplomats to exit the country because of what's going on. I think Spain also followed suit as well after massive protests. And I think the more protests there are, and the greater the pressure on governments, then the whole narrative is going to start spinning in a new direction.
Mm-hmm. Israel has what they call their Hasbara, which is a propaganda wing. And the more protests we do and show how they are lying, the better it is. People are just sick and tired of it.
Yeah,
we're tired of this whole Semitic thing.
Like, all of this is just unacceptable. This should not even. And I also just saw a Common Dreams article that said that has a headline up saying U.S. official won't call forced abandonment of Gaza newborns a war crime.
What do you call a war crime?
And everything that's happening is a violation of international law. It's a violation of the Geneva Convention.
And meanwhile, Israel is making up crap.
It's the rules-based order. And we have said this time and time again that this is the rules-based order happening right before our very eyes. And until we have a successful dump the corruption movement for peace and justice, not only from the Palestinian people, but for the people of Yemen, for the people of Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Central and South America. Like, that's why we need to look into who is funding our politicians and why there is no accountability measures that have ever been taken place.
Get rid of them all.
We have to dump them all, get rid of them all. And it's going to take more than one election, I'm afraid. To be realistic, it's going to take probably 3 election cycles to do this. So we have between now and 2028 to get Greens and independents elected. wake the masses up.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going on, and the way that they continue to accelerate the violence and allow it to happen is just bizarre.
And the fact that the violence continues every single day. You know, people are starving. You know, they have no decent place to lay their head down. Their homes have been destroyed.
They have no food, they have no water, they have no decent shelter, no good quality access to health care. They have no electricity, no fuel. And it's a large open air prison, is what it is. It is the largest incarceration, the largest concentrated incarceration in modern day history, especially present day history.
Oh, it's a concentration camp, a large
Yeah.
concentration camp. And meanwhile, yesterday on my show, we showed the contrast, how they were so concerned about soldiers' diarrhea, and meanwhile, they showed no concern for the Gazans, what they were going through. You know, 10 soldiers have got diarrhea. That means we got to take them to the hospital. Gastrointestinal issues. They need to be inpatient. But there they are blowing up the hospitals in Gaza. And you have the issue with dehydration, gastrointestinal issues with the Gaza children and the people there. But there's no concern. No concern about the Gaza people. Just the soldiers.
Yeah, they don't even have any concern or regard for their own, because if they had any real concern over their own people, they would not be bombing in Gaza knowing that their own citizens, their own people are being held hostage there. And that's what the permanent ceasefire means. And that's what people do not understand and do not get at all. Like, if they truly cared, they would stop the bombing to save their own people and save countless other lives. But they won't even do that.
No. They don't have any value for the hostages.
They don't care for the hostages. And if their hostages died from one of their bombs, then that death is on them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I don't understand. That's why I am so perplexed on that issue alone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why keep bombing knowing your own people are there? Like, don't these people understand or not get it that if you're bombing where your own people are at and they are, then they are putting their own people at risk.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they're doing. But the big major concern is IDF diarrhea.
Yeah, the Israeli diarrhea
Put
force.
them in the hospital.
And that also brings us into another article that I'm going to read over. It's from Truth Out, a really good publication where Israel accelerates violence in West Bank as it resumes airstrikes on Gaza. The violence unleashed by Israeli settlers and military against the West Bank makes clear Israel's genocidal intent. And you see right here how damaged this home is. This was once a beautiful home, pink. This was probably a little girl's bedroom or a teenage girl's bedroom.
Yes,
Beautiful pink walls, a beautiful woodwork bed. That is a beautiful bed. You can see right through the floor, I think.
Yeah, the wood. You can see it's really good wood they used.
Yeah, that's really good woodworking. And that right there is a Palestinian man checks a heavily damaged house following a raid by Israeli troops early in the morning in the Jenin camp in the occupied West Bank. And I'm pretty surprised. And you know what has me more surprised than anything? That the Israelis are not going out there pillaging all these properties to steal good beds like that, sand them down, and claim them as their own and sell them.
They did steal jewelry.
Yeah. Amid the swirling clouds of ash and death produced by Israel's violent assault on Gaza, the apartheid state is also carrying out a campaign of violence in the occupied West Bank. Gaza has deservedly been the focus of international attention because of the existential threat facing Palestinians in the concentration camp. However, the situation in the West Bank demonstrates that Israel's genocidal policies toward Gaza are only a component of its overall settler colonial project, which now appears set on the full annexation of historic Palestine and the expulsion and oppression of Palestinians. The events of the past 6 weeks have plunged the West Bank into a situation that is both a continuation of the events preceding it and a historic jump into a new dangerous territory characterized by both increased violence and the steadfast hope that the literal and figurative prison walls imposed by the Zionist state can be torn down. I spoke with 2 Palestinian activists in the West Bank to get a sense of the situation and the mood. Basil Faraj, a professor at Birzeit University in Ramallah, and Iyad Suleiman Hadalain, an activist and resident. I wonder if he's kin to Mr. Suleiman. In the village of al-Khair, both describe a tense moment pulled between the death-dealing machine of Zionism and the striving for freedom. Since October 7th, Israel is in assaults on the Palestinian city centers, especially in the West Bank cities of Jenin and Nablus, which have faced military attacks and air strikes along with police repression. Palestinian villages near illegal Zionist settlements have also faced intense settler violence and confiscation of land, and mass massacres have swelled the number of political prisoners who face worsening torturous conditions. Near continuous raids and invasions are carried out by the Israeli occupation forces, and the Israeli air attacks have returned to the West Bank for the first time since the Second Intifada in 2000. On November 16th, far-right Ministry of Security Itamar Ben-Gvir commented that Israel should deal with the Palestinian Authority in the same way it is dealing with Hamas. The eliminationist project of the Israeli state is now taking an event at Israel's collaborationist allies in the Palestinian Authority. Faraj described the situation to me as a very violent moment of war in the West Bank where their violence is increasing. It is a violence that kills, that maims, that destroys, that is trying to reinstill the image of an Israeli state that's strong, which was shattered on October 7th. Since October 7th, 227 Palestinians have been killed in the West Banks in attacks that are both acts of Israeli revenge and escalation trajectory of the settler colonialism that existed before the current conjuncture. The city of Jenin, for example, has been attacked by the IOF a half dozen times since the start of Israel's war. 14 Palestinians were killed in one invasion on November 9th. Just this weekend, Israeli forces carried out a raid at Ibn Sina Hospital, one of the largest in the occupied West Bank, paralleling Israel's brutal assault on hospitals in Gaza. The word invasion is the most apt, as these are not the raids, but full-scale military assaults on urban areas. Police repression is near total. Faraj described how in the neighborhoods of East Jerusalem, any Palestinian walking around deemed to be suspicious is at risk of arrest by the police. Repression of protests in East Jerusalem in the 1948 territories and on social media is near total. Military vehicles prowl Palestinian suburbs like Abu Dis in East Jerusalem, areas that, according to Faraj, have in the past been quieter. Hang on just a moment. I have to use the bathroom real quick. Okay, I'm back. But yeah, like all of this, it sounds like more or less they are stoking fear into these people to get them to be much quieter. And I just cannot fathom why anybody could just sit idly and support such grotesque levels of human rights abuses. I really can't. I cannot wrap my head around this at all.
I feel the same way.
Like, it's crazy and it's insane.
And they raise their children, especially the far right, in psychology that this is their land. And they've got to go grab the promised land. And then
this is nothing more than a land grab.
People that are living there.
The other facet of the danger facing Palestinians in the West Bank is the intense settler violence. A campaign of terror is being carried out by armed settler organizations emboldened by the far-right government and ministers like Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, who have encouraged them with inflammatory words, the direct provision of assault rifles, legal protection in the apartheid courts, and the coordination of support by the IOF. These organizations with a long murder, pogroms, land confiscation, and burning Palestinian families alive in their homes have been let loose and given license for full-scale assault on Palestinians. These settlers, Farage said, are daily using violence and threats of arson and murder to drive Palestinians out of their homes, steal land, and establish more of their militarized outposts that pepper the West Bank. Particularly threatened are the Palestinian villages, which are in Area C, the part of the West Bank that are under the terms of the Oslo defeat, as is in complete control of the occupation, which we've covered Area C in the past. Even though it encompasses 61% of the West Bank, it is here that Palestinian villages are more isolated and often exist in close proximity to the encroaching illegal Zionist settlements, making them particularly vulnerable. 15 entire village communities of Palestinians from Area C have been forced out of their homes since October 7th. Iyad Suleiman Hadalein lives in a village in the South Hebron Hills near the Masfer Yada. Before the events of the past few months, villages like Iyad's Al Khair faced the near constant threat of violent eviction. Israel routinely demolishes Palestinian homes with bulldozers under the pretext that they were built without permit. The grim irony being that the permits for buildings are not given to Palestinians. Villages like Al Khair have regularly been destroyed and rebuilt with steadfast resilience by the residents. Hadalein described to me how the South Hebron Hills feels like everything has collapsed like the Wild West, with settlers coming every day and night. With the law of the gun, he described under emergency law, travel between the hundreds of isolated Palestinian communities is shut down by the military. Roads are blocked and even cars are confiscated. Israel has even erected gates shutting off the villages, restricted access to the highway, and put up large barricades of earth. There is a huge line of traffic waiting until they check every car, every person, Hadalein told me, which essentially cuts off these villages for access to larger areas to get food, supplies, jobs, schooling, and health care. Also, restrictions of movement blocking Palestinians from their grazing land and olive fields have severely impacted the livelihoods of these villages. Settlers, however, do not have restriction on their movement and routinely carry out their terroristic violence and land confiscation against the population being held hostage, with homes and schools demolished daily. The villages around where Hadalein lives are no stranger to the threat of bulldozers, but the harsh shutdown by the military and dramatic increase in settler violence bring new levels of danger. Additionally, after October 7th, the international solidarity activists, NGOs, and independent media have worked alongside activists like Hadalein were forced to evacuate, thus leaving Palestinian residents without the support and visibility afforded by the outside activists and media. This shadow of darkness under the settler violence loom is exacerbated by the absence of outside international observers and the threat of arrest and administrative detention for Palestinians who speak out online. Furthermore, the military law that is applied to Palestinian targets for arrests for anyone who resists the settler activity carried out with the full backing of the IOF. Najla K., another Palestinian I interviewed, described how settlers come into your bedroom trying to attack you, and you cannot even defend yourself without being arrested or worse. You can't do anything because of the emergency, Hadaline told me, while he wishes for the end of the restrictions imposed under the pretense of Israel's war on Gaza. He said that it will never be like it was before October 7th, as he expects the intensified violent settler colonialism to continue to even escalate, even in the event of a ceasefire in Gaza. But we already know where this is going. Like, this is the same song and tune and all that over and over and over again. Like, we see where this is all headed. We really do. And it just makes absolutely no sense at all to have a government that supports this.
No, it makes absolutely no sense.
Along with the military invasions of Palestinian cities, authoritarian police repression, and an all-out war by the armed settler organizations on Palestinian families, a massive increase in arrests and widespread torture of prisoners also characterize the current movement. The first component of this policy is the broad expansion of the net snaring Palestinians in the carceral regime. In the first 2 weeks after October 7th, the number of Palestinian political prisoners doubled, with over 7,000 currently being held. Over 2,500 of them being held in administrative detention without charge or trial, according to Addameer, a prisoner advocacy group. Palestinian political prisoners are being held hostage in Israel under conditions of extreme degradation. After October 7th, according to Faraj, prisoners had clothes, pens, books, food, and personal items confiscated. Time in the courtyard was eliminated. No visitation with family or advocates were allowed. This included the International Red Cross not being allowed to see the prisoners and witness their conditions. Electricity was limited to 2 to 3 hours per day. Fresh water was limited. Showers were impossible. Torture is commonplace, including the blasting of music like popular Israeli children's songs. Mocking those conditions has become a grotesque viral TikTok trend amongst the Israeli right wing, which I have seen those videos. I have reported those videos. I don't know if they have been taken down or not. These conditions have led to a number of deaths, and more stories have begun to come out as some of the prisoners have been released through the prisoner exchange and have testified to what they have witnessed in Israeli jails. One of the released prisoners, Omar Arshan, told of witnessing the killing of Thayer Abu Assad by Israeli guards who brutally beat and left him on the floor, calmly watching him die while other prisoners called for a doctor who would not come for an hour and a half. They also arrested Ahid Tamimi again, in case y'all want to know.
It's infuriating. These people are sadistic.
When asked to describe how Palestinians in his communities are responding to the current moment amid the enormity of the genocide in Gaza and near the omnipotent violence of Israeli settler colonialism in the West Bank. Farage said that even in the face of profound devastation, in the wake of seeing images of bulldozers tearing down the Gaza border fence and a ripping barbed wire in October, many Palestinians are newly thinking about freedom and breaking metaphorical and literal walls. This is partly reflected in a recent poll conducted by Arab World for Research and Development. Despite the horrors of the current conjuncture, the poll found 73% of Palestinians believe that they will win this war. Farage describes this change as involving a shift in perception of the Palestinian subject, seeing Palestinians as not just victims and objects, but as actors of resistance. One of the goals of the Oslo process, according to Farage, was a project reshaping Palestinian consciousness, a project of introducing a new Palestinian subject that thinks or that believes that resistance is futile, that it has no meaning, that if you resist, you will be punished, and it has no point. Cultivating this sense of futility was an explicit goal of Israel and the U.S. in the face of the continuous history of Palestinian resistance against the continuous history of Israeli settler colonialism, except attempts to ease Palestinians as a people. Farage said that over the years, Oslo, the idea of state shrank as the main political parties sold illusions and dreams of them that were never to be fulfilled. This left people waiting in prison. They were lingering, waiting for a moment where they would maybe be released through negotiated agreements that did not take place. He describes how the 2021 Unity Intifada broke the cycle of the helplessness, and events like the jail of Gilboa prison raised the horizons that the prison walls were not impenetrable. Now Farage said a new Palestinian subject is being imagined, but what this change in the horizon means is still undefined, Farage said. Meanwhile, Israel's assault on the West Bank continues. The moments, I'm going to read this paragraph too. The moments and the events that we're witnessing this month require a reassessment of everything for everyone. And that's a really good paragraph. I'm not going to read over the whole thing. Meanwhile, Israel's assault on the West Bank continues, and those resisting it face repression at every turn. These are resilient people, like very, very, very resilient people. And I have to I have to commend them for their strong resilience.
The constant attack. It's been going on ever since the Zionists came into the region. Generation after generation has to deal with it, and this is wrong. I mean, the Zionists just need to go. If they can't live in harmony with the people that are there, they just need to go where they came from.
Exactly. Like, they don't want to live in peace and harmony no more than our ancestors did when we came over here and did the bloody genocide of the indigenous populations where we currently live. And we see these same recurring conditions happening here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And Brandy shared a really good article earlier, and this is going to be the fourth and final article of the night. And I'm just going to read just short snippets of it. Thank you so much, Brandy, if you're still here, for sending this article over. And this is what UN Chief Guterres invokes Article 99 of Charter over Gaza's crisis. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Wednesday invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter for the first time, citing a severe risk of collapse of the humanitarian system in Gaza as the war rages between Israel and the militant groups Hamas. In a letter to Jose Javier de la Gasca Lopez Dominguez, the current UN Secretary Council President Guterres said that he expects public order to completely break down due to the desperate conditions rendering even limited to the humanitarian assistance impossible. So this is a really good article for anybody who wants to go and read it. Like, my voice is kind of getting choppy. And I'm just going to post the article in the comments here for those wishing to go and read it. But my voice is kind of getting choppy after all that reading tonight.
Yeah, so we know the fit that the Israeli government had in the Knesset. Oh, them just slamming the whole thing. They just don't like it. That narrative doesn't have power.
Exactly.
That's why they keep coming out with more propaganda. Because they know they're losing when it comes to...
They have lost the information war.
Yes, they have.
They have lost the whole plot. And all that. Like, all of this could have been easily prevented had what happened in 1948 never even happened to begin with.
Exactly. Because you know something, at that time, there were Jewish people that went to Africa, they went to South Africa, they went to China, and they blended in. They blended in with the communities. Here, the Zionists did not want to blend in. They wanted to control and get rid of the people that were there in Palestine. So had Zionism not even been involved, the Muslim world welcomed. They welcomed the
I
Jewish
just found
people.
something here on Twitter, and this is what I'm going to share real quick over on the screen. This is something that's happening currently in Turkey. And this is from a Majid Freeman right here. This is something that I have just now saw. And this guy is saying, Erdogan, you called us onto the streets to stop the coup attempt, and we responded to your call. Now the Turkish nation is calling you. Now it's your part. We want to see our soldiers in Palestine. that's a good sign to see.
Yes, it is, because the people are standing by. They want to be there for their, community. Palestinians, they want to be there. And
if
they
Turkey
don't like
did
to
send
stand by.
soldiers into to defend Palestine, that would really change the whole narrative. If Turkey, a NATO nation, did that.
Well, Turkey is leaving NATO. That's what I've read. And Erdogan, he tried to be to normalize with Bibi Netanyahu. Those days are over with.
And according to the Associated Press, right here, NATO chief tells Turkey's Erdogan that the time has come to let Sweden join the alliance.
Erdogan doesn't want any part of this. Yes, I had read, I guess, in Turkish media. There was a media where I had read his intentions to leave NATO.
Exactly. D, any more comments?
Well, I was going to say, we're going to have to keep up on this. They're hours ahead of us over in Palestine. So tomorrow's the day when you
We're
have
going to have to
these
find more
psychotic
developments
people.
as this goes on. And
So
we're
we'll
going
be
to have
talking
to,
about this tomorrow.
yeah, we're going to talk more about this tomorrow in your show, because I'll be joining you tomorrow. I will be live again Friday night as well. And I want to tell everyone, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Go and join the Facebook group over on Facebook. I have a Facebook page that I am going to be working on sharing links and articles to, called Revolution Evolution. And follow us on Instagram at RevEvolution24. Here soon, I will be launching a brand new Twitter with the name of Revolution Evolution as well. And hopefully I can find another platform to stream to all 4 platforms: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at the same time. And YouTube.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Greg.
I thank you for coming on. If anyone is still watching, do not forget to go over to Around the World with D and Friends. We've got so much good content over there. Check us out over there as well. They are a partner with Revolution Evolution. And give a follow over there as well, because there's going to be a lot more developments coming soon. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you do not miss out on updates coming from Revolution Evolution. And have a good night, everyone.
Yes, good night. Thank you, Greg.